So 99% of people stop learning once they graduate from school. And that's why they stop improving. Because school has made us hate learning by assessing us and making learning this stressful kind of process. But as children, we were all naturally curious. We were all curious and wanted to explore the world and follow our natural curiosities. But then the education system kind of like stomped that curiosity out of us. But bro, my reading has absolutely changed my life since I started reading a year and a half ago. So reading can like literally change your personality. It can make you more productive. It can improve your relationships, improve your social skills. It can literally change your entire view on life and how you experience the world. So reading is amazing compared to like other forms of learning because in my opinion, it's like sitting down with a mentor in the field that you're interested in. It's like sitting down with a mentor for like 6 hours and having him like teach you everything he knows about one specific topic. And when you get one person's point of view, it's like putting on a pair of glasses, a new perspective with which to see the world. Now people are like, they're always against reading because it's like, oh, it's just one guy's point of view. But that's the point, because you're getting a whole worldview and you're kind of trying it on. And you're going, okay, I like these parts about the worldview, but I disagree with these parts. And I want to implement these areas into my life. So that's why I think reading can absolutely change your life. And it's like probably the number one habit, I think. One of the number one habits that will absolutely change your life. Like, I love reading. It's my favorite part of the day. I read every single day without fail. I just love it. It's my favorite part of the day. I actually look forward to it. So the thing is, unless you have a system to remember what you read, then your reading is going to be very, very ineffective, because they did some studies and you only retain about 20% of what you read. So that's okay, but ideally we want to retain more. So I'm going to teach you in this video how to create a system to actually remember what you learn. So, okay, so the first point, you want to read like a hunter. So how does the education system teach us to read? So they teach us, okay, get your book, start on page 1, go to the introduction and read it, and then highlight everything you don't know, right? And then go to page 2 and page 3 and page 4, all the way to the end, right? Highlight everything. But the thing is, in the school system, we are reading to pass an exam. So we're trying to memorize all the content. But when we're reading in our lives, we're reading to try to change our lives, to change our behaviors, right? To change our worldview. So we don't need to memorize an entire book. That's not the point. The point is to find practical things that we can use to change our lives. So read like a hunter. So what does that mean? That means when you read, you want to look out for that light bulb moment, that like spike in dopamine you get, where you're like, aha, and you find like something that you can actually use and implement in your life. And when you find something that you can actually use and implement in your life while you're reading, you want to write it down, like in a notebook like this. Write that down. Literally what you can do. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you read the chapter that says, use the person's name in conversation, and they're more likely to like you. So you might read that section and you might go, oh, okay, I never use people's names in conversation. How about tomorrow, when I sit next to Mark in maths class, normally I say hi, I could say, hi Mark, and try to use his name. So you write in your notebook, okay, principal, use the person's name in conversation, and I'll try tomorrow with Mark. So for example, like here in my notebook, I was reading about storytelling, and I found a section that said, always provide a physical location for every moment of the story. So I wrote that down, and immediately I went to the story that I was writing, and I looked if I was putting a location in every area, and I added locations. So if you find something you can literally implement in your life, something actually you can take action on, then either write it down or go do that thing. So like if you wanted to, you could read this book in like a public area, and whenever you had an idea of what you could do, you could like go walk up to someone and use it. Because like I said, the reason we're reading is to improve our lives, and we do that by changing our behavior. And so just reading something won't change your behavior. To change your behavior, you have to actually go do it many, many times till it becomes a habit. So if you read that thing, okay, like for example, let's say, yeah, you read this section of this book that says smile in conversation. It's not like you're going to read that and suddenly you're going to be smiling every day. You have to actually make an intention to practice that, and practice it many times till it becomes a habit. That's how it is for every single insight you get from your books. So it's better to read one page and find something that you can implement in your life and use for the rest of your life than it is to read like an entire book and get nothing out of it. So if you're reading a book and you're finding not many of those insight moments where you can use something in your life, then probably the book is too hard and like all the concepts are going over your head, or the book is too easy and you understand it too much. So you might want to change your book. So yeah, that's point 1, read like a hunter. And point 2, on that hunter kind of mindset, I learned this from the YouTuber Ali Abdaal. You want to treat books like articles. So how do most people read books? Like I said, they start on page 1 and they read to the end, right? Beginning to end. But how do we read an article? So we'll open the article and we'll kind of like skim through it and we'll look for interesting sections and we'll read those interesting sections. We might skip the introduction and we'll jump around, right? That's how we should approach reading as well. So if I got a new book and I was going to read a new book, I would go straight to the page of contents and I would kind of look for a chapter that looked interesting. It's like, oh, chapter 5, that looks interesting. I'll read that first. And I read chapter 5 and, you know, then I kind of just follow my curiosity and I read, jump around. I don't finish chapters if I don't find it useful. And I almost never read like the introduction or the preface, the beginning parts of the book. But the problem with this, right, is how do people discuss books? They're always like, oh bro, how many books did you read this year? Oh bro, have you read blah blah book, right? Everyone likes to be very attached with how many books they've read. But why do we read? Again, it's to change our life, change our behaviors. So if you're reading a book and you're like a few chapters away from the end, and you're like, okay, this book isn't really helping me, I want to stop reading it, then stop reading it, bro. So what if you can't tell people that you haven't fully read a certain book? You know, someone asks you, oh, how many books have you read this year? Yeah, it is kind of lame to say like, oh, I read 3/4 of this book and 2/15 of this book, rather than saying like, yeah, I read 10 books. But like I said, we're reading to change our life, right? So I always abandon books. If I'm finding it's not helping me, I'll just abandon a book. And I'll kind of jump around to different chapters as well. So yeah, read books like an article. And one more thing on that, I always reread books. If I find a book really, really helpful, like this one, I will reread it. Because when you reread it or reread sections, you always get more out of it. Like for example, if there's a chapter and you like tried to implement it in your life, when you reread it, you'll find like other perspectives on it and other things. You'll often learn more from the second reading. So like this book and many other books that I have, I read on a Kindle, by the way, mainly. Other books that I have, I've read them like, this book I've read like 10 times probably, just jumping around to different chapters. Like I treat books that are really good, that I really like, I treat them more as like a guidebook, like a textbook, rather than like a book. Don't know if that makes sense. Okay, point 3 I'll make. This is really, really important in my opinion. Follow your curiosity. So again, with schools, you're kind of forced to read one certain book, right? It's like you have to read this certain textbook. You can't follow your curiosity. But when we're reading in our real lives, we can read whatever we want. So like what I do, I'll be reading like 10 to 15 books at a time. And when I'm doing my reading session, I'll kind of read whatever I'm interested in. So it's like, okay, today I feel like reading about breathing. And then the next day I'll be like, oh, I feel like reading about body language or whatever. So don't be afraid to have like a bunch of books that you're reading at the same time. And read what you're curious about. Because in the end, that's why we're reading, because we're curious people. We should commit, like I believe that we should all commit to a lifetime of learning. We should be students for life, not just students in the education system. So follow your curiosity, because being curious and learning about that curiosity, in my opinion, is one of the best experiences in life. So, oh shit, gotta slow down, bro. Talking too fast. Okay. Final point I'll make, just review those notes that you have, because often you'll review them and you'll find different ways to use those things that you got out of your books in your life. So yeah, and make reading a habit. Like if you're not in the habit of reading right now and you hate reading, start with 5 minutes a day. Start with 5 minutes a day and build up. I read about an hour to 2 hours a day now. But yeah, definitely you'll have to build up to that amount. You can't just start doing it if you're not in the habit of reading, or if you don't enjoy it that much. Also, if your mind always wanders when you read, like a lot of people, our attention spans are pretty terrible these days, so a lot of us can't even really read. Again, attention span and your ability to focus is a skill that you have to improve over time. So start low and go higher and higher. Okay, hope this helped, bro. Subscribe if you want more content on self-improvement and reading as well, bro. Subscribe to join me on this journey. See you later. And go watch this video right now.